So she talked about age and how some of these guys who wasted their time, their youth, playing around with women and their emotions and not being serious about settling down, how when they get past 35, when they hit 40, maybe even 50, that's when all of a sudden they're having like this midlife crisis where they don't have kids and they don't feel like they have a legacy. They're not proud of themselves, and now they're eager to breed. I've met
Hello, YouTube. It's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And the title of this video is called Passport Bros. Y'all squandered your youth being players. Now you're scrabbling for a wife, says hater. And the way this video came about was I was watching Big Truck Reviews channel, and shout out to him. And he was reviewing another hater from TikTok that had a lot of negative things to say about the Passport Bros. And so the clip I just showed you pretty much was one of her talking points, in which she was pretty much saying that she thinks that most of Passport Bros are guys who were players when they were younger, and now that they're old, we're having like a midlife crisis, and then for that reason, we're traveling overseas to find a wife because none of the women our age want us, and none of the women who are younger than us want us here in the States. So we're traveling overseas and we're kind of like scrambling and hoping we find something. And to add some of the stuff she was saying, she also was saying that a lot of women that overseas, they don't want older men. So it's going to be kind of tough for us to find a woman over there. And so I kind of wanted to debunk this whole thing and kind of talk a little bit about her talking points and that kind of thing. And please watch the video by Big Truck Reviews on this. He did an excellent job breaking this thing down. He has some excellent talking points. And I just kind of want to go a little bit more in depth on some of the things she said and debunk a little bit of this and kind of give my own take on this as well. So first off, with her comments saying that most of us were players when we were younger, and now that we're, I guess past beyond our years, we're looking for a wife. Few things. First off, she's looking at things from a female perspective and not from a male perspective. As Dennis Sperlin has said, and shout out to him, we're not on the same timeline as they are. They have, I believe it's called geriatric pregnancy after they reach 35. So they have a biological clock that's ticking, and they have to settle down and find somebody if they want to have a few kids without having any issues. So their timeline is a little bit different. So they don't really have that much time to kind of mess around and then hopefully get married or, have kids and that kind of thing. Because actually recently I saw the pricing for how much it costs to freeze eggs. It was like almost like $15,000, something like that. So it's a huge payment to get your eggs frozen, which is why it's better and which is why in general, for women in general, it's probably best that they have, especially foreign women who don't have that type of money, in which in many cases, such as women in Colombia, Brazil, they're only making maybe like $200 a month, $500 a month. Though freezing the eggs is probably cheaper there, but yet and still, it's a pretty expensive procedure. So in many cases, it's very, it's unlikely that a lot will have the opportunity, and it's probably best that many, as we've been stating and emphasizing, should get married when they're younger and find somebody and use their youth to find a mate. Now, unfortunately, in this country, where they promote women to be independent, to chase their careers instead of trying to find a husband. Unfortunately, you have a lot of women who are waiting much later in life to try to get married and have kids, and I believe there was an article that was saying by the year, I think it was 2030, they were saying like 50% of women in the United States will be single, and they try to make it like this joyous type thing, but really it's gonna like Andrew Tate said it best. He said that his grandmother, when he went to visit his grandmother, I believe around like Christmas time, she had like so many grandchildren and children around her. It was about almost like 70 different people there. And out of that, one woman there were like 70 different people. And I think about that and I say, will these women really feel good about themselves when their friends had went ahead and got married and had all these kids, and on holidays such as Christmas, New Year's, their friends who decided to get married has all this family supporting them, all these people to make sure that they don't die alone, versus themselves when they have that same versus themselves when Christmas time, New Year's come and there's no one there but their dogs and their cats. Will they really feel joyous at that time? I don't believe so. I mean, I feel like at that point they're gonna really realize that they missed out on a whole lot by giving a pass to, marriage and kids and that kind of thing. So that's that. So that being said, they're on a completely different timeline. We as men, we can have children way up into our 70s if we wanted to. Not that I would recommend that men do that, because of course you want to still be around when your children grow up, because I believe the life expectancy for most men is like around like 77, something like that. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend once you get around that age to necessarily have a kid, but to each his own. I mean, there are some cases I'm assuming where some guys have married a woman in their 60s or whatever, 70s, maybe had a kid, and they just have enough money to just, give the woman to support her kid, once he passes away. But obviously, I think it's better that most children have their father in their lives. So I pretty much would say after about maybe a little bit, I don't know, close to about 60. Once you get about 60, I think it's about time to kind of, if you haven't had kids at that point, it's probably better to adopt, or I don't think it's probably best at that point, just because of the fact that you may not be around, but it's still possible, to each his own. But at that age, I necessarily wouldn't. But either way, I only say that to say that if we wanted to, all the way up until we're 70 years old, men can have children. So there's no real rush overall. I just think that in the United States, we kind of like, for some reason, it's kind of like they push on men the same timeline that they push on women. And it could be because, like Big Truck said, that the way that the model works in the United States is that in your 20s, you're supposed to get married, build wealth, get a house. So by the time you're like 55, your house is paid off, you've already had your children, and then you can use that money to get you maybe get you like a condo, or, have enough money left over to kind of care for yourself until, unfortunately, you pass away and that kind of thing. So could be for that reason they kind of really push and kind of emphasize men to get married at an early age. But I kind of agree with Dennis Sperling in that myself, just after traveling, I just encourage most men to don't even really think about marriage until you're about maybe like 35. Once you get about that age, then yeah, if you want to settle down, have a kid, it's probably a good time at that point. Only because when you get out of college at that point, I think you should be more focused on building yourself a career, trying to work on building wealth, getting you a house, and that kind of thing. I just look back at my life and I just wish, I wish my focus would have been more focused on that than necessarily getting, trying to focus on chasing, women and that kind of thing. And I just think that, I don't know. I just feel like when I was, I don't know. I just think that once again, like in your youth, you should be more focused on building a career, going to school, trying to get a skill set and that kind of thing, versus necessarily trying to settle down and maybe find like a girlfriend, wife, that kind of thing. So that's that. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, a lot of what's she trying to say about the guys that like we kind of squandered our youth? That's just not necessarily true. Like plenty of us, like I said before, I've had decent experience with some of the women here in the States. I did okay overall, but as most pastor bros have agreed, I just mainly felt like the juice wasn't really worth the squeeze. Like you deal with a lot of women who are very combative. In many cases, they want to run the household. Most of the guys I met that did have girlfriends, wives, their wives are kind of wearing the pants. They're telling them what to do. I saw so many older men at clubs. They're, complaining about their wives and that kind of thing. So I mean, I didn't really see a lot of. It didn't really seem like a lot of people were like happy overall with the quality of women here. And really, this was my thing. When I got out of college, I wasn't really making that much money. I actually was working as a teacher for a little bit, and as you know, the salaries for teachers are like crap. Um, and actually, I take it back. Before I became a teacher, actually, when I got out, I was still working on getting my degree and that kind of thing to become a teacher. So during that time, I actually, as many of you have probably noticed in my videos, I talked about I worked at McDonald's for a little bit just to pay off bills and survive and that kind of thing. But the one good thing about when I was there was I used to work around a lot of women who are from Peru, who are from Brazil, who are from Ecuador, and I could instantly tell the difference in the way they interacted with me versus some of the American women here. It was just completely different. Even some of them, they had husbands back home and they would actually send money back home. Many of them had planned to go back and forth to work here in the United States and then go back there and take the money there. Just my interactions with them were just so different that I at that point, I knew that I really, really wanted to travel and more than likely get me a foreign girlfriend just for my interaction dealing with them. The women there, unfortunately, most of them had wives and they had boyfriends and that kind of thing. And I just, and really, yeah, after that, um, I really, really wanted to have the opportunity to travel. And at the time, I wasn't making that much money. Even when I became a teacher, it wasn't necessarily enough where I can actually go and travel and get a feel for what it is like overseas. So at that point, I was still in the States, still dealing with the same type of like, women, that kind of thing. But just my interaction with that, I kind of wanted to hold off until I was able to get my finances up so I can finally travel and hopefully, meet the woman of my dreams. So eventually, I changed jobs. I got into the IT space. And then from there, I was able to have a little bit extra money to finally travel. And the first country I actually went to was I went to Costa Rica. That was the first time I had went out of the state, and I had a wonderful time there. Met a lot of different girls. Hit up some clubs there. Um, just my interaction with them, I was totally sold on finding me like a foreign wife. Like currently, right now, as some of you may have heard, I'm already, I have a girlfriend currently. She's from Venezuela, and she treats me very, very well. Buys me gifts, cooks for me. I'm really, really loving it. Now, of course, at some point, I'm going to settle down and that kind of thing. But I'll say this to say all this. She's saying that most men are squandering their youth, but I disagree. Just in regards to my case, in regards to many guys' cases, I believe that most of us are just starting out in our career. We're trying to build wealth and that kind of thing. And me personally, I just felt like, especially at the time when I was working at McDonald's, me having a family, me having kids, it's going to be a complete struggle. My family, when I grew up, we weren't poor, but it was a lot of struggling. And me, myself, I don't ever want to have to go through that ever again. And I don't want my kids to ever have to go through that again. So instead, I kind of held out and said, let me get my career together. Let me make a little bit more, money and that kind of thing. Then I'll think about finding someone special. Then I'll think about like settling down and that kind of thing. And I think that's the mentality of most of like the passport bros and people in general, and a lot of men in general. I just think that a lot of us now, especially the newer generations, are more focused on building our career and building ourselves up first before we settle down and have a family. So, and also in many cases, I mean, a lot of times what you're going to find out, if you're not really like a celebrity or you're not like a Chad, Brad, or Tyrone, a lot of women, they're not really trying to give you that time of day anyway. So even when you're out in the clubs and you're trying to like actually deal with some of them, they kind of curbing you, they treat you poorly, and that kind of thing. So it's not just a matter of the guys being out there trying to be players. In many cases, these guys, as I said before, 30% of men from ages 18 to 32 are virgins. And all of this is not by choice. Some of this is by choice, but some of this is not by choice. It's because A lot of women are not giving them the type of date, or a lot of women might feel like they don't make enough money, they're not tall enough, they're not attractive. As we all know, a lot of these women are chasing this top 10% of men. If you don't fall in that category, if you're not a celebrity, you're not an entertainer, again, if you're not exceedingly handsome or something, or tall or something like that, you're not really getting you're not really getting that much attention anyway. And then also the thing is, as I stated before, 60% of the women in this country are either obese or overweight. And overweight here is not like overweight in Brazil, where the fat kind of forms in the in the right place and the woman looks very, very thick. Here, a lot of women who are, I guess, quote unquote, I guess, that are fat, these are like women who are just sitting behind a computer screen, not really moving, not really walking, taking an elevator, that kind of thing. So it's not the same. So a lot of times men are not really attracted to these women anyway. And and as I said before, and also Pablo Frescobar said this as well. It's kind of like, once you go overseas and you see how fit and friendly the women are, when you come back to the States, you don't really want to deal with some of the women here. And my interaction with those women, and when I was working at the McDonald's in Florida, after seeing how they looked and the way they act, there's no way I can go back to dealing with some of the other women that are out here with the attitudes and just a lot of them just being out of shape. But I can't go back to that at all. Like, I mean, I'm not saying, like, to some degree, it's almost like once you go overseas or you go to like the DR and the women there kind of shower you with attention and they're taking care of you or cooking for you, how could you go back to dating some of these women back in the Matrix? It doesn't even make sense. So she's saying this out of, in my opinion, it's kind of like penis envy. Penis envy. It's kind of a projection, because what she's saying about the passport bros, the women in states are literally doing that. They have this thing called the 304 phase, as you know, in which they're using their early 20s, part of their 30s, to just mess around with several different men. They're not trying to settle down with them. And then suddenly in their late 30s, 40s, they're talking about, I want to settle down. Just recently, Ashanti, who's 42 years old, is now talking about how she wants to settle down. How she wants to settle down. Lala, she got out of divorce with Carmelo. She thought things were going to be greener. Now she's divorced and she's older. And recently, I think O'Shea posted something about how she's having a hard time finding a man. You have Tia Mowry, the same thing. She divorced. She thought it was a come up by her divorcing. She thought it was going to be all these dudes checking for her. Only come out that men are not looking for post-wall women. They're not looking for these type of women. So in a sense, they've pretty much squandered away their youth, and now they're older, and now they're looking for men, but those men aren't there because men in general are not dealing with this, especially as passport bros. After going overseas and after success stories of you seeing guys in their 50s, 60s, 70 years old in the Philippines dating women who are 19, in their 20s, their 30s, why would they want to go back to dealing with that type of woman? Now, I do understand that there's some men, because I have met some men that don't necessarily like younger women because they feel like they're not that mature. They kind of want a woman who's, maybe 30 years older or something, or even maybe somewhat close to age, just for the fact that as far as like conversation and that kind of thing, it's kind of like it's not the best fit. So I understand in that case, but in most cases, a lot of guys, they're trying to date, women who are still somewhat fertile, and still has her looks intact and that kind of thing. So in my opinion, again, this woman is just projecting, and for example, you have I believe her name was Lori Harvey. Same thing. She was dating Michael B. Jordan. For some reason, she passed on him, thinking she gonna do better. I think she's dating this other like actor thing now. I don't even know. Like my whole thing is, I don't understand why you would want to date. It's just like the basketball players. They dated one girl, they break up with that girl. Another basketball player is dating that same girl. Why would you want to? Why would you? To me, it's kind of almost gross, kind of, to be honest with you. I don't want to date a girl that one of my friends was just dating. It's just weird. But to each his own. I wouldn't do that. But either way, you got a lot of women doing just like the Lori Harvey thing. They think they have all this time to mess around, And they just think men are going to be forever checking for them. And the men are not there checking for them when they get in their late 30s and their late 40s. And this woman and these women are mad that we as men, even in our late 30s, late 40s, we're still able to get women in their 20s. We're still able to get women in their 20s. We're still able to have families and have children. And a lot of them are just very jealous about this. And this is why a lot of times I feel like they try to call men who are like in their late 40s, 50s, and so forth, dating these young women. They try to call you predators and all this stuff like that. And it's really because they're jealous that you have all these options, even as an older man. But like Dennis Sperling has said, men, we age like wine. As we get older, we get more wealth, we get further in our career, we become more valuable. We have those options. It doesn't, and a lot of women are just upset, unfortunately, that it doesn't work that way with them. Yeah, they can go overseas and probably pay for some guy to take care of them, something like that. But I personally think it's a bit of a downgrade for them to do that. Whereas one point in their 20s, they literally had men throwing themselves at them, trying to take them out. But now they have to almost use their assets to kind of get guys to be attracted to them. I just think that's, it's kind of like they forfeited their femininity. They could, if they would have held on to their femininity, stayed young, found a guy in their youth, they wouldn't even be in this position. But that's on them though. So one last thing she talked about as well, and I'm gonna talk about this, and then I'm gonna try to wrap it up. I don't want to keep this video too long. Is she said that most of the women over there will prefer to date men their own age. They're not really looking for older men. So when we go over there, we're scrabbling and we're rushing and we're panicking and, oh, yeah, am I going to find a wife? Oh, and we having like a midlife crisis. Nothing can be further than the truth, man. There are several stories of guys in their 50s, 60s, 70 years old dating women in their 20s and 30s. All you literally have to do is go to YouTube, type in age gap Filipinas. You will literally see story after story about guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s dating these young women, having babies with them, starting families, getting married. The women with them are happy. They don't have any issues. Especially if you watch 90 Day Fiance, you have several stories on there. I believe it's David and Annie. David was about to go on 50. Annie was 25 at the time they got married. He's still able to have a kid if he wants. I'm not sure if he's going to have the kid, but he has his own little show. She's happy being with him. He has no problem being with her. Same thing with I believe his name is Big Ed. He had went to the Philippines. Now, of course, he kind of passed on the and actually he was dating like a single mother, but either way, it was I think she was in her 20s or something. She had like a son, and then he was maybe around like 50. He had no problem dating her. I believe before he had dated some other women as well. What I'm saying is, in these other countries, the age gap, especially in Southeast Asia, is not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. You also got to consider that in a lot of these countries, as I said before, for example, in Colombia, the average person is only making about $500 a month. $500 a month. They barely can have enough to kind of take care of a family nor get married. So a lot of times you'll be surprised that they're happy for Paso Bros to come there and to, wife up some of their daughters, wipe up some of their sisters. Because not only that helps provide for their family as well, because you're taking care of her. That's one less financial burden for them. And then, of course, while she gets here, she's living with you. She's working in the States. She's sending money back home, taking care of them. So it works out in the end. So they don't have a problem with this. It actually works to their benefit. And on top of that, once again, women there, they have a tradition of cooking. As BGS Itmore has said, and basically, I'll revert to what Dennis has said. He pretty much said that a taxi cab driver there in Colombia, it gets treated better than pretty much a doctor here in the States in many cases, because even though the doctor gets the women, he doesn't have submission. Like, she's being completely, as I said before, trying to run a relationship. I already talked about how Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, he took his girl to like some type of dinner with some type of outing with Leonardo DiCaprio, and she's basically disrespecting him in front of him, flirting with Leonardo DiCaprio right in front of his face. So that being said, versus the guy in Colombia, He might be the guy selling lemons, but he goes home every day to a wife that cooks and cleans for him and submits to him and talks to him tenderly and gives him the best sex that, any guy will pretty much want. So, that being said, the women are used to just, living, lifestyle that's very thrifty, in which they find other ways to find enjoyment besides just material things. I know in the West we're very big on materialism. So that being said, yeah, I mean that being said, if you're there and you're better yet, I'm gonna end it with this. This is what Dennis Sperling said. It was a very good point. He said, only in the West or in richer countries can a woman have the luxury to be picky and say she only wants a guy who is, I'm paraphrasing, who is 6 feet tall, makes six figures, has a six pack. Only in rich countries. In other countries, the productive man rules. Women are looking for productive men. There's plenty of men who are just, plenty of I guess Pookie and Ray Ray type men in these other countries. Women are not really checking for these men because they can't really provide for them. So if you're a productive guy, you can provide for a woman, you can provide for a family, your value goes up. You instantly become, for the most part, a high value man in these countries. So women are checking for you, including younger women. Me myself, even in my late 30s, I've had, and I understand that's not very old, but what I'm saying is that I've had no problems with getting women who are like 19, 20, that kind of thing. It's almost like it does, even with that huge age gap, that has never been like a hang up for really any of the women I've met. Now I'm sure there's probably some women there that just want to date a guy her own age or something like that. But I can assure you, it's very, very, it's not really an issue in these other countries. So I'm going to end it on that. Now, I don't want this video to go too long, so I'm going to end it on that. And guys, just tell me what you think in the comment section. Hit the notification bell. Please hit the thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm. Please subscribe if you never, subscribed to this channel before, because I'm going to have definitely more and more videos coming out. And until next time, this is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, signing off.